Hi, I'm an Australian guy and I'm here in Brest, Belarus, and I'm going to give you one of the most important and potent pieces of dating advice you're ever going to receive, and that is to judge a book by its cover. So you've had the whole thing of don't judge people, don't stereotype, judging's bad. But of course, judgment when based on data is very, very good. If we go with the assumption that you're looking for something long-term girlfriend, wife, mother of your children, etc., you probably want to minimize the chance of bumpiness along the way, minimize the chance of divorce, etc. So what I've noticed is women who tend to overly sexualize their appearance, they tend to be a little bit more bent towards promiscuity. Now, it's not a guarantee, but there's a really strong correlation there. So what I did was I delved into the world of academia, and it turns out there's a whole lot of research on this. As an example, girls with tattoos. And by the way, at this point, I know that about 9% of you watching are women, and this applies just as equally to men, I should tell you. So if you're screening for a dude, you can listen up to this as well. When researchers collected a whole lot of data on the presence of a tattoo, how many tattoos somebody has and how big those tattoos are, they saw a massive correlation with casual sex, casual sexual partners, infidelity, and other kind of impulsive behaviors. Also tied into this tends to be a lower level of self-esteem, and what tends to go with that is a higher level of narcissism. So if a girl is unusually sexualized, when I say unusually, you got to compare it to the other girls in her dating market, right? So if she has like 6 big tattoos, but so does every other girl, then it doesn't really mean anything. So for example, here in Belarus, lots of girls have the fake, kind of long fake fingernails. And because so many have this, it's just become a normal thing to do. It doesn't really give you any kind of a flag about the girl. Okay, so how should you play this? You meet a girl, you kind of like her, you don't know her that well yet, and she's quite sexualized compared to the rest of her peers, right? What to do? Well, don't freak out. It's not a guarantee that she's going to be super impulsive, promiscuous, and so forth, but it does increase the probability. So what you need to do is to hone in quickly. Does she fit the archetype? Is she narcissistic? Is she self-absorbed? Is she impulsive? Does she kind of have a certain smoothness about her? Often the girls who are very narcissistic and guys who are very narcissistic can often be very charismatic. So become really sensitive to these other cues, and if you start seeing a consistent picture of this kind of a person, just eject. Look, this topic's a bit sad because what generally causes all this is some kind of childhood trauma, right? So it's not something I really want to go around advertising too much, but the reality is that you want to look after yourself, right? You want to minimize the chance of problems in the future, and this kind of a red flag is very visible, it's very easy to tell, and then it's very easy to make sure, well, is this red flag actually something or not? Now, of course, a girl can change her appearance pretty easily, pretty quickly, but if you have her Instagram, for example, and you're scrolling through and you're seeing some nice, like, pretty conservative, like, floral kind of dresses below the knees and whatever, and then you're also seeing the really nightclub gear stuff going on as well, the night stuff gear is the truth. All right, a little bit of tough love today, but again, this is all backed by a lot of academic research which consistently says the same things. Now, I've got some really good news for you guys. I have written an entire book about red flags. They're all super easy to determine. I tell you how to use the red flag and of course work out whether or not you should pursue a girl or not. If you go to the description for this video, you'll get a link there to my website, marriedinminsk.com. Turns out that video was pretty quick, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go for a bit of a stroll. I'm here on Sovietska Street, or Ulitsa Sovietskaya, which is like the main kind of pedestrian slash eating slash hanging out slash cafe street. It's heading into lunchtime on a nice Monday afternoon, midsummer. A little bit overcast, but still beautiful and warm. So let's go for a quick stroll, and I'll give you guys a little bit of intel on Brest, what it's like and so forth over the next few minutes. I did make a long format video walking through Brest, so have a look through my backlog of videos for that. But for now, I'll just share with you a few things. Now, of course, if you look on the map, Brest is right on the border of Poland, and you can tell in the genetics here. I was just in the supermarket, like literally just buying a Ciroc and some water, and this guy who was rather intoxicated being checked out before me, started talking to me, and he looked exactly like my uncle. My uncle is a Polish man, and married in, obviously, to my auntie, and he looked like an absolute twin. So you can see that kind of Polish genetics here a little bit. People maybe just a little bit rounder faces, this kind of stuff, maybe a fraction shorter than you might find in the further east, just a little bit. It's that little bit of Polish genetics creeping in. Because when you look on the map, apart from it being right on the border of Poland, it's actually, there's like a little kind of, it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle. It's like the tab on a jigsaw puzzle. So it's really, it almost feels like you're in Poland. And of course, it's very European, as you can see. And even the demeanour of people here is just a little bit different than, say, Gomel. Gomel's kind of in the Far East there, right up near Kiev, capital of Ukraine. And people there are a bit more Sovietsky, should I say. Whereas here, I think it's just a fraction more European. I've noticed this as I've been filming, that more people are saying hello, trying to photobomb me, trying to start conversations. Versus Gomel, where you probably wouldn't get that quite so much, Just a small observation, but just a little bit more maybe open and friendly down this way. Of course, it depends who you meet, right? I've already had a couple of run-ins with people who were just drunk and annoying. That guy at the supermarket's not one of them. He was all right. He was happy. You mainly get happy drunks here, I have to say. When you find yourself with a 60-year-old drunk Belarusian man, most of the time it's going to be okay. They're just cool. They just want to have a chat. They'll make a joke. They'll play around with you. They just want an audience for a minute, and then they'll move off and do whatever they're doing. For the most part, there's no... Oh, they might ask for a ruble, but often not as well. So I would say that this Sovietskaya street here is one of the more happening streets in Belarus, and at the moment Minsk is pretty quiet. In the middle of summer, people on holidays, people in the dacha, university students gone back home, a little bit quiet in Minsk, and this Sovietskaya, come the evening, is pretty busy. I'd say it's there's no busier street in non-Minsk parts of Belarus, and even Minsk at the moment is damn quiet. So it's a lot of a good buzz down here. Young people hanging out, playing instruments, eating ice cream, chatting, laughing, having fun. It's a good feeling down here on a nice warm evening. Of course, now it's obviously lunchtime, so it's a little bit quiet. Kids are at school, people are mainly at work, but you can see it's got the infrastructure here. Lots of restaurants, lots of pizza restaurants, if that's your thing. Lots of pizza. It's as bad as adventurous as it gets down here, but pizzas aren't bad. Had a couple and they're not bad. So yeah, the mentality of people down here is it's a kind of mix. You see these guys, they look very, I'd say more Polish than Belarusian necessarily. But I know two different people who are mix, half Bela, half Pole. And they're both from Brest but don't know each other. So just like Minsk, there's no shortage of cafes. There must be, I don't know how many outdoor cafes and stuff along this street. There must be at least 20 or 25. At least. Little Kino Theatre there. We're probably getting up to the main part here. I started off in the south, if you're following me on Google Maps. Started off in the south there. Again, some more outdoor areas. It is a fraction warmer here than Minsk. I'd say by 2 or 3 degrees. Just anecdotally, the 2 times I've been here, I've just noticed that it's been that little bit warmer. Because Minsk, only in the depths of summer does it actually really get hot. Whereas I think Belarus, where are we? Brest. Just gets that little bit warmer. It's a little bit more south compared to Minsk. In this part of the world, a few hundred kilometres north or south can make a big bloody difference. I'll tell you what, especially in the peak of summer, or especially in the trough of winter, really make a big difference. So you can see the old Burger Kings. You got the 2 fast food there, Dodo Pizza, which I think is a Russian chain. with none other than Burger King there. And I think there's a KFC somewhere around here as well from memory. And you can see there's a good example of like a pizza gelato place, and this is probably the busiest area here. This strip here leading up to this quite impressive monument here. This is probably your most busy area, and if you want to check it out on Google Maps, this would be the Kino Theatre. So when you see the cinema here, Kino Theatre. It's not a bad little place there, pizza gelato. Can't quite see. Let's see if the zoom works. Oh, check that out. So pizza gelato. This trend of, I'm trying to get my finger here, there we go. Pizza and gelato, you'll see, if you can speak a bit of Russian or know a little bit of the alphabet, that they're actually English words but with Russian characters, right? Let me zoom back out. I'm actually just hand holding this camera today because my gimbal just broke literally today in my backpack. So I'm just walking, so I won't zoom in too much because it'll be just so shaky, I think. So shaky. But yeah, this is kind of one of the more busy areas in the evenings. Got the fountain, quite a few water features around. Had ice cream from here, wasn't too bad. In fact, look, I'm going to be really honest, the ice cream in Belarus is not good, right? It's not good. Belarus does some things really well, including cakes in that sweet dessert space, but ice cream, oh man, it's basic. But the basics aren't bad, like the vanilla's okay. It's actually not bad, it's quite creamy and nice, old school. But yeah, I wouldn't travel to Belarus for ice cream necessarily, but that'll change over time, obviously. Let me zoom a little bit. So this would be probably the dead center of town here. I wonder what this hashtag is. Hashtag something or other. You can see there's quite a few tourists. You can see they're touristy. You got the water bottles, obviously. Tourist vibes. Brest is quite touristy. It's known as a kind of a nice place to come chill out. I actually just bumped into my mate then, here with his buddy. Just randomly, my classmate. We're both wagging class. Bump into each other 300 kilometers from Minsk. It's kind of funny. It's a good vibe. Even, yeah, very typical again. You know what? I said earlier there was about 25 cafes, restaurants that are outside. I'm going to re-estimate that and say it's more like 35 or 40. It's bloody heaps. And in the night time, they'll be largely full, by the way. Now, I don't know Brest that well, but I mean, in Minsk, if you look at this kind of outdoor thing here, that will be added just for the summer. So I'm going to go ahead and assume it's the same in Brest. These outdoor areas is added for the summertime. This is just where I had a decent sized altercation with a drunk guy, so hopefully he's not around. If I stop filming, that's why. But it should be okay. This is a classic kind of, we got some normal kind of Stolovaya kind of foods. But yeah, you'll just kind of get the fast foods here, the Belarusian food and some of the Italian stuff. Italian seems to be your gateway drug for international cuisines around the world, is what I'd say. They're not ready maybe for, well, Japanese is probably the next one. That's the one sweeping across lower economic countries at the moment. Sushi, including here. It's really fascinating because for me, sushi, honestly, it's just rice, which is really a shitty peasant kind of food. This monument's quite impressive. It's a new monument. My friend was just saying who I bumped into before. Only 25 years old, and it tells kind of, you know, a foolish story of Brest. All right, looks like we're not going to get across, folks. I love these counting crossings. In Australia, you just stand there like, okay, it's red, I'll just wait till it turns green. Here it tells you, look at that, 36 seconds. So I know if I want to just go for a bit of a wander, if I want to commit to filming something, I've got 28 seconds and counting, literally. that. It's kind of funny because Australia, as many positives as there are in Australia, in life in Australia, we're kind of backwards with a lot of basic stuff like that. Like even here in Belarus, everywhere you go, there's just PowerPoints. There's PowerPoints freaking everywhere. You can just charge your phone literally everywhere. From trains to cafes to just freaking anywhere you might sit. There's just an abundance of power boards everywhere, you know. It's considered normal, whereas Australia, you just bring your own power bank or just don't use your phone too much. That's kind of the advice. So I'll just show you, I'll just let this lady walk past and I'll show you what's going on here. It's quite a formidable statue. I'd say it'll be 15 metres up to that cross, maybe 20. I'd say 20 to that cross. That's a good size monument. I mean, Brest has a pretty rich history, right? It's been controlled by different empires over the generations. I mean, poor Belarus, like, you know, they've bloody copped it from left, right and centre over the centuries. To be fair, they haven't gone too long without being flattened. I remember my friend saying that, you know, they don't get too attached to buildings here. Which is, I mean, she was being serious too, because you know how, like, well, unless they're really young, they don't tend to banter joke like we do in the West. Whereas we might say that, you know, in the West it's like a joke, dark humour, but as a joke anyway, and then laugh. Here they make this kind of comment only if they're serious. Yeah, obviously World War II, I'm sure you guys know, this was right in the firing line. Obviously Belarus was a big part of the Soviet army. And World War II was predominantly Germany versus the Soviet Union. At least when you look at casualties, that's what you see. Although maybe history books in the West might point the priorities in a slightly different direction. But if you look at those casualty lists, Jesus, the number of Belarusian men that died, oh man. And it's really reshaped the society, you know, because all those men die, you know, and then a whole lot of them come back with no arm, come back just mentally fucked up, you know, mentally fucked up, end up alcoholics, blah blah blah. Like, I really feel for these guys. As you say, you do have a lot of random conversations with older drunk Belarusian men here, and they are for the most part very well behaved considering how drunk they can get. I have to say, to their credit, they're generally quite good. Yeah, some can be a bit annoying and pushy, but I'm always as patient as I can be with them, because I know what's behind that being blind drunk 11 in the morning is probably some war wounds, dad's war wounds, lack of dad's war wounds, you know. You don't just suddenly decide to get drunk 11 in the morning every day, you know what I mean, without some pretty sizable trauma in your life. But it's had a really interesting effect on Belarus's culture, because there wasn't many men, and the men that were left were, as I say, probably traumatized, turning into alcoholics, blah blah blah. This guy having a crack. So, as my teacher told me proudly, women built Belarus. Although I don't think they would have actually built all these buildings, to be fair, but they would have done some of the brain work associated with some stuff. But of course what that did was it put you in a situation where there's a whole lot of women and nowhere near enough men. And this is definitely part of the reason why women in Belarus still compete quite hard in terms of appearance, because they had to compete, because there wasn't that many men, or not enough to go around for sure. And the quality of men, again, with kind of physical and psychological trauma, missing a leg, just having gone through some of the atrocities against the Nazis. I was in this makeup camp of World War I the other day, kind of closer to Minsk, and it was all kind of reenacted. And it's just a reenactment, right? But you can kind of see these, you know, poor Belarusians just sitting there waiting for this large German army who were kind of brutal and ruthless to come through. And it's just like, gee, they wouldn't have bloody stood a chance, you know what I mean? Would not have stood a chance, these poor Belarusians. But nonetheless, all right, we're getting towards the end. There's still a bit more, actually. I'll take you right to the end. We're chatting, we're here. You might as well go up to the end of the street here to where this kind of in Australia we'd call it like a mall, this kind of walk-only area. I've been there before for a pizza. It was quite good. In fact, I might go there for lunch today. I'll just check the timetable. Got to get back on a train back to Brest. The trains down here are all right. They're all right. I got a sleeper this morning. This was an experience. I got a sleeper. I had to be at the consulate here between 11 and 1, right? So I'm like, all right, let's just get here a bit before 11, go suss it out. What's the queue like? Do I know anyone here? Blah, blah, blah. So I get up. It's a sleeper from Moscow to Brest, stopping through Minsk, right? So well, this might be interesting. You never know who you get on sleepers. And the culture of a sleeper is, if you're in a compartment of 4, and there might be, say, you and a mate and someone else and a mate, you kind of chat, get a bit friendly. They're quite sociable sleepers, I found. My limited experiences with them. So anyway, I get in at the 6:52 from Minsk, right? Check this out. The 6:52 from Minsk AM, and of course I've gotten up at like 6 o'clock, right? So I'm pretty keen for a sleep, but I get in the room there, and there's a couple of older Russian ladies and an older Russian guy, and they were very friendly and very welcoming. Surprisingly, for that time of the morning, I thought I would have gone in and people were kind of half asleep, and I was on one of the high bunks, so I had to kind of, they put those little peg things near the door there, and you step on the peg and then push yourself up. They were very chatty and accommodating, but problem is my Russian's okay for a functional, where you're from, what are you doing, what do you think about this, blah, blah, blah. Just the first 5 minutes of a normal conversation, but after that I haven't really got enough to keep it going, and if the other people haven't got the skill set to be able to facilitate a conversation when you've got worse language skills than they do, then you kind of hit a bit of a blockage, And of course, no one wants to have the same boring bloody conversation, right? Where are you from? What do you do? What are you doing in Belarus? Oh, are there kangaroos in Australia? Do you have kangaroos in your house? Like, you can only have this conversation so many times, right? And of course, they get bored as well with me asking kind of comparable questions, and there's no kind of soul. There's no dusha. There's no dusha to the conversation, right? It's just kind of a bit robotic and whatever, so it kind of fizzles out. But the etiquette on the train was really interesting. You got to roll up your own. They give you like a sleeping bag thing, and then you can pay an extra $1 or something for a sheet. Then you got to roll it all up again, and even the toilets in the thing were bloody good. They had a button that you press. So you got the bowl there, and then there's a button just above the bowl that you press, and it slides out this plastic sheet to cover your the toilet seat. I was like, man, is this Japan? What is going on here? Because otherwise, in parts it's a bit humble, but as Belarus is, it kind of has these kind of creature comforts. It's a bit of a creature comfort kind of place, It's not a super rich country, obviously, but they have these little hygienic, comfortable additions that I've often never seen before, including in Japan. Japan notorious for its heated toilet seats, but the Moscow to Brest overnight train also has this. You press the button and it removes the old plastic cover from the toilet seat and adds another plastic cover, so you can sit your fine ass down on some plastic that no one else's stinky ass has been on. That's pretty cool. And the tickets were, I paid 25. Oh wait, for the sleeper I paid 27 with the sheets, which is around $9 for about a 3.5 hour. And of course I had a good snooze. So I got up at bloody 5:50, so I had to sleep for about 2 hours in the end. Chatted to those people for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then had a bit of a snooze for probably 2 hours, and I woke up and they were gone. And there was this other rather plump Belarusian lady in there. When I say plump, oh man. She loves her draniki. I just kind of like roll over and look, expecting to see the Russians there, and what do I see? I see a new lady. Again, older lady. Здравствуйте. Sitting on the bottom bunk there. And looking up to me, thinking, who's this snoring Western bloke? And then I couldn't understand. I don't know where she's from actually. I thought she was Belarusian because of her demeanor, but she's trying to say something about she needs to put on some more clothes, is what I thought she was saying. So putting on more clothes because it's cold. This is what I thought she was saying. It's all in Russian, obviously. I'm like, okay, cool, okay. And then she's saying it like 3 times. I'm like, I'm not stopping you. Like, but what she wanted to do was actually get changed. So I misinterpreted what she was saying. And then she's like, stand up, she's like, splits up. I was like, okay, this is interesting. So I stood up and then she pointed to my shoes. I'm like, oh, you want to get changed? Ah, I got it, okay. Now I put a mail. So I just left the room there and let her get changed. Into her long sleeve stuff, long pants stuff. Not that she needed it, it's the middle of summer, it's pretty warm out here. I mean, you can see what people are wearing, right? They're generally wearing kind of shorts. There's a guy with jeans. Mixture of dresses and shorts, and guys have a mixture of pants and shorts as well. Although guys have mainly shorts. He's got pants, but he's got shorts. Boys have got shorts. Yeah, guys mainly wear shorts. Not super warm, pretty warm. Alright peeps, well I'm getting a bit hungry, has to be said. So I'm going to love you and leave you. I'm going to enjoy очень вкусная pizza. До свидания. So I just lied to you guys. I'm going to film a bit more because I just had an interesting thing happen. Now when you're filming, you do have people sometimes photobomb you from behind, or just kind of stare at you because you're speaking English and walking along, whatever. And you may see, it was actually the ladies were sitting on one of these chairs before, and you may have just heard me say "Здравствуйте," because they were just kind of staring at me with a curious face. So I just kind of waved and said "Здравствуйте." And yeah, sometimes when you do this kind of stuff, you find yourself in some interesting conversations or interactions. But it was just hello, and I just left it at that. I did just whatever, just kind of being polite. It was kind of weird. Not weird, but obviously I look interesting or unusual, so I just kind of said a pleasantry. And it was just like an older lady, Asian genetics, with maybe a couple of her daughters. I don't know. I wasn't really paying that much attention, to be honest. But then as I crossed this street here, they actually came up to me, and I just stopped filming. And they came up to me, and they're from, forgive me if I can't say this properly, but they're from the far east of Russia. Now they've got full on, I don't even know, genetically, I couldn't describe them. Half Chinese, half Mongol, half Japanese. I wouldn't even know, because when I saw them, I'm like, oh, maybe they're Southeast Asian. I can't really tell, yeah. Because the 2 girls who are sisters, they looked very different from each other. One looked even more like Thai or something. The other one looked, freaking hell, I don't even know what. But some kind of very rounder face kind of Asian. Not like Indian Asian, but more like Southeast Asian kind of Asian. And they came up to me, and we started chatting. And they're from, it's Kamchatka? Elizava or something, the town's got 40,000 people. It's further away than Japan. And they're here for a week in Brest and a week in St. Petersburg, and then they're going to fly back to their village. It was kind of funny because the grandma, she was trying to push me towards one of the daughters. It was quite funny. But apart from that, she then showed me a tourist promo video for their city, remembering there's only 40,000 people in their city. So it showed me this kind of tourist promo video, and I'm like, okay, cool. And there's someone singing in it, and I'm like, are they singing Russian, or do you guys have your own language, or what's going on? And it's like, yeah, singing Russian. And then I realized it was actually the daughter that was singing in the video as a tourist promo lady. That was so fascinating. I mean, I can't, it's not really on my radar going that far out, because they said it took 8 hours to fly from, really, again, apologies for the pronunciation or terrible lack thereof, Elizava, Kamchatka. You'll no doubt know what I mean if you're a bit of a Russian file or a Soviet file. You'll probably know these places, and apologies for my ignorance. I just haven't been out that way. If I haven't been somewhere, I tend not to worry about it too much. You know what I mean? And if I like it and I'm interested, I tend to just kind of go. But anyway, yeah, that was the most interesting kind of interaction. It was, yeah. I'm like, I might go there. It seems cool. But they're saying it's like a mix of like most places well, not most places, but like a lot of oblasts in Russia. It's like a mixture of 1, 2, 3 tribes, plus maybe some ethnic Russians thrown in, maybe plus something else. pretty typical for the Russian Federation. It is a really mixed kind of country. I'm not sure the history and exactly how they chose the borders of Russia and why they included so many, what you would almost call that, what kind of could be their own countries, right? I mean, obviously the history of Chechnya and Russia aside, but a lot of these oblasts could be their own countries. But obviously somebody decided to put them all in the same federation when the Soviet Union was dissolved. But yeah, I thought that was a very interesting conversation to have. And when you are filming, people are quite friendly. I'm pretty friendly anyway. I mean, I do tend to get into too many conversations as it is. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think filming does give people a bit of a license to just talk to you, I guess, if they might be a bit too shy otherwise. But the grandma, man, she was leading it. She was like, talk to my daughters or granddaughters or whatever they are. It was quite funny. But yeah, I mean, just I think it's so cool. I'm in Brest. I'm Australian. I'm in Brest. I'm talking to his family from the far east of Russia. Of course, all in Russian, which is always a challenge, but always fun. So anyway, this time I mean it. This time I'm really going to say goodbye. I've got to eat and get back on this train pronto and get back to Verminsk. All right, peeps, enjoy.